Hello and welcome to LA Currents. I'm Anita Bennett. Well, Los Angeles has a department dedicated to protecting residents from discrimination and leveling the playing field. So how do they go about doing all of that, and what types of cases do they take on? Joining us with some insight, we have Capri Maddox. She is the Executive Director of the LA Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department. And also we have Joumana Silyan-Saba. She is the Director of Civic Participation and Human Rights. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. So tell us about that work. What role does this department have in the big picture?
We were founded in 2020, appointed by our previous mayor, Mayor Eric Garcetti. We're very grateful for the privilege now to serve under the leadership of Mayor Karen Bass as we lift 5 commissions and fight hate, discrimination, and inequities on all fronts. We have challenges as it relates to hate cases soaring in the city of Los Angeles, but we fight it with our aggressive campaigns to address it by celebrating all cultures in Los Angeles. If you have a Heritage Month, we have a program to celebrate your community.
What I want to know, Joumana, how do you enforce, when you say you're fighting discrimination, how do you enforce this?
One of the pillars of our department is implementing the Civil Human Rights Law for the City of Los Angeles, which was signed into law in 2019. And so within the purview of the law, we have the capacity to not only investigate, but we also have subpoena power. And so a big part of what we do in the department is to address discrimination in the private sector. And so our purview is limited to the private sector, and that is in education, employment, housing, and commerce.
So are you working at all with the city attorney's office, or are you doing this enforcement in-house?
So the enforcement is within our department. So it is within the purview of our department to implement the human rights law, but to also do the enforcement of the law as well. When it comes to the penalties, and one of the things I really want to highlight about this law, we're not the only city that has it. There are other cities that have it, but LA in particular, in the way the law was written, it has a lot of teeth, which gives us the ability to not only implement penalties, which could go up to $125,000 or $250,000 if there is harassment or violence uncovered during the course of our investigation. So we have the ability to enforce those penalties.
Capri, are there ever any cases that are too big for the department to take on? Let's say a corporation just has widespread discrimination. How do you approach that?
There is no case too big for us. We want to be intentional to send a strong message that hate has no home in Los Angeles and discriminatory practices will not be tolerated. We are grateful we just had a big case against Smart and Final. It's a major corporation where there were practices happening with a bag check policy that were done in a discriminatory manner. The customer was asked to leave his bag at the front of the store, whereas other customers were not given such a security measure when they entered the store. And we had an African-American male who had the presence of mind to take pictures of other folks that were in the store to identify the fact that these folks were carrying their bags openly, and they actually weren't even aware of the bag check policy. So we want to make sure that we have equity in many spaces, and people need to be treated properly in the private sector.
Talk to me about discrimination in housing. How widespread is this problem in the city?
Because we have jurisdiction limitations, and the state has a wide swath of that area, we have just a few areas where we can bring cases as when you think about housing. And in these spaces, maybe based on your financial ability to pay is something that's important, but how you pay. If someone mistreats you because you are a Section 8 tenant, that may be an issue. If someone is treated differently or not allowed to rent an apartment because they may have an accent. Primary language is a protected class. And so we want to be intentional to let folks know that although we don't have the entire purview, like we can't do race or gender discrimination in those spaces with LA City, as Joumana mentioned, we actually will pass on those cases to our state partners.
Mm-hmm. What types of cases do you see the most often?
Year to date, we've received 861 inquiries.
Wow.
So we do get quite a large number of people reaching out to us. We do see quite a bit of calls come in related to housing, potential discrimination in housing. Our next one is commerce. So it's housing, commerce, and then we have education and employment where we see a little bit less.
You mentioned housing, you see the most. Lately, there's been a lot of cases nationwide where a person, tried to buy a house and they were appraised, let's say a black or brown person was appraised much higher than a Caucasian person. Do you get those kinds of cases?
When you think about the appraisals, homes that are owned by people of color and women tend to be valued at a lower level.
Oh.
And there's so many discriminatory practices that happen in housing. I mean, there are even people of color who will set aside a friend, a Caucasian person, to show their home when the appraisal process is happening, or they may take their pictures off the wall to, make sure that it does not impact the value of their home. This is something that there's countless studies on, and I know Tavis Smiley on 1580 AM has had many shows in this space. So it is an issue. Another issue we actually are looking at is the fact that African Americans and Latinos pay about $1 billion more for their mortgages in America. Over about $1 billion more for their mortgages today compared to their Caucasian counterparts with the same credit score and a job salary. I want to be intentional to tell you there are discriminatory practices that are happening with banks. Actually, banks even looking at surnames on how they handle and manage accounts, and that is something we're looking into right now in the city of Los Angeles.
If someone is experiencing this problem, how do they get in touch with your office?
So folks can reach us on the web at laisforeveryone.com. They can call us at 213-978-1845, or they can come down to our offices at the LA Mall, 201 North Los Angeles Street, suite number 6.
Are you guys on social media to get the word out?
Yes, we are. We are proudly on all social media platforms at LA Civil Rights.
Excellent. And you mentioned, before we wrap up, you mentioned LA for All. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, LA for All is an award-winning campaign to send a strong message on the offensive that hate has no home in the city of Los Angeles. It's a campaign in 21 languages. We have blanketed the city in over 5,000 ad spaces, and people can also use our sign in their businesses, dorm rooms, or other places and spaces to send a strong message in 21 languages. Any language they order, they can go to laisforeveryone.com/LA for all, and they will have an opportunity to actually request our posters.
I have learned a lot today. Thank you so much for this enlightening conversation and letting people know that there is help out there. Capri Maddox and Joumana Silyan-Saba of the LA Civil Rights Department.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Excellent.
it was truly a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of LA Currents. I'm Anita Bennett. Thank you for watching and have a great day.